Good evening and welcome to the KFM Hotseat, the Friday panel of journalists. My name is Rita Kemgesa, and it is not the usual panel of journalists where you get to hear only the male voices. It is a different one, and of course it is for a reason. And besides, I'm happy to be back. Yeah. So tomorrow, which is 8th of March, we shall be celebrating Women's Day. But we're not only celebrating Women's Day, but we're also be taking a reflection after the 30 years of the 1995 declaration of the Beijing Declaration that, put into place to see that women issues are put at the forefront in planning and in development. But it also marks a significant step because we shall be having just 5 years to go for us to assess the Sustainable Development Goals, and especially goal number 5, which is on gender and equality. And of course, when you talk about gender and equality, we're looking at how do we ensure that, women, girls are also having an equal share on those different decision platforms, on an equal share with the men. And today, of course, it will be a special focus. We shall be looking at the women in the media. And with me right now in studio, it is the usual suspect, the voice you've been hearing every day, Judith the Team. Welcome to the Hotseat Friday edition of the panelists. You're on the other side today. You're not the host. So
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rita. And it's really, really a pleasure and so good to have you after such a long time. Mm-hmm. And it's also different when you're the one answering the questions or sharing your insights and you're not the one firing the questions. It's quite different, but quite a good experience as well. I am excited to be here on this side as a media person, as a woman. First of all, I would like to say congratulations, ladies. Congratulations to all the women out there for tomorrow and for so many tomorrows. Our day should not just be tomorrow. I think we should actually find a way of celebrating women and celebrating sisterhood every day.
I was going to get to that because the other day we're out there in the field and the men are saying, you women, every day we've been celebrating you from Valentine's, we celebrate your birthdays, and now Women's Day. What is so special about it? But anyway, speaking of that, 30 years after the 1995 Beijing Declaration that, makes Women's Day the day that we get to celebrate every year. You mentioned earlier what it means for you as a woman, but let's focus now as a female journalist.
Yeah.
And what a day. KFM, for me, it's one that nurtured me to be the woman that I am today in the media. Mm-hmm. But let's hear your side of the story.
Thank you, Rita. So, if we're to shift the focus to the media, I would say the media has come a long way, over the last 30 years. And I also want to take this opportunity to celebrate the women in media who dared to go where traditionally no or very few women could. We have women in this country, women journalists who covered very significant moments in our history, women who covered, for instance, the war, the LRA war, and off the head I can think of Gloria Lake. She was quite... In the 90s, I think that was a time when you wouldn't actually have male journalists in those female journalists in those spaces. But then she and a few others paved the way, I think, for a lot of younger female journalists who've come over the years to go into these spaces or beats in journalism. We call them beats, which were predominantly covered by men. But I would say still there's a lot. We have a lot to celebrate, but we also still have a very long way to go. I am glad that over the years, gender has also been mainstreamed in the media, where we now have a significant number of women growing into leadership positions. We have a good number of women heading desks. We have a good number of women heading newsrooms in editorial capacities and so on. So for me, it is something to celebrate.
So when we speak of accelerating action, from what you're saying, would be right to say actually that, media has evolved over the years in terms of representing the women?
Well, before I come to that, I still have other issues that I think I'm still building a case.
Mm-hmm.
So I was saying we have a lot to celebrate. But that said, when you still look at also the numbers, say men who are still holding big key roles in media platforms or media houses who are making big decisions, you'll still see the disparity. The men still have a bigger share, which means they have a bigger voice and a bigger say than the women. And certainly we need to accelerate.
With an exception of NMG.
No, I don't want. No, I know we work for NMG, but we are talking for the industry and the sector in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be specific, but I think this is something that we all need to reflect upon. When I was looking at the good things that have happened, I think I was at the back of my mind. I was looking at the NMG platforms. You have people like Masina Lugo heading the editorial desk for here at the Daily Monitor. You have we had Linda Chibombo previously heading the news desk at NTV. We've had Josephine Karunjis, and these are people I can think of in our generation, but there's so many more. We have, for instance, celebrated women like Barbara Kaija, for example, who is the chief editor for the New Vision. Here at the Daily, at NMG, we have an amazing lady, Susan Sibira, who is heading who is the managing director, a position that has never been held by a woman. Certainly, this is so much to celebrate. Having said that, we also have to be alive and realistic to the fact that there's still a lot that needs to be done. I think a week or so ago, a conversation started picking up on social media, on X in particular. Dr. Spire had received, I think, a message from someone in his inbox saying, look, there's an elephant in the room that's not addressed in the media that we need to talk about, and that's sexual harassment. Mm-hmm. Now, does it exist? Does it not? As a woman, I would say I've never experienced it. I have been lucky to not experience that in my entire career as a journalist. But I have heard stories from young girls, even when I was a journalist, you would hear certain things. I would hear from other media houses you meet in the field, and you're like, where we're working, this is how things are. The editors are asking for sexual favors in exchange for, especially when companies downsize, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of insecurity. Am I going to lose my job or not? And in journalism, we have to also accept that this is an industry where people do so much work and yet they earn so little, and that goes for both the male and the female, okay? But because you've seen that the power dynamics have been structured in such a way that the men have more power, certainly you're going to have these kinds of cases coming up, and I think that is something that should be confronted. We need to accelerate action and address issues of sexual harassment in newsrooms or media platforms. We need to accelerate action and address issues of poor remuneration or low wages in media houses. We need to accelerate action to ensure that we have more women actually growing into positions of authority and decision-making in newsrooms and our media houses.
And that takes me to the next question. Very many people have argued that, we keep giving the same examples, the Barbara Kaijas, name them. Have these women who have been given a chance to be in the top leadership in the media spaces actually done their part or done their role in ensuring that we nurture the next generation of young female journalists, from your side of the story?
So I think when it comes to that I think that's a question that speaks to mentorship. Mm-hmm. And I can say 100%. A lot of these women, you are where you are because you were mentored by women. In the KFM newsroom, you've had Catherine Ageno, you've had the Hadija Mwanjes. You've had me. Well, I don't know if I mentored you, but if I did, I think I did. I contributed.
Flowers.
Exactly.
To be the best female radio anchor that ever lived in our generation.
Yes. So that is something to celebrate. I would say there has been a lot of mentorship. A lot of young women like us and other young ones coming after us who've grown to be where they are have certainly been mentored. I grew because I was mentored by a lot of women, including Barbara, including Linda Chibombo, and here as well, there was so much support from the females in the newsrooms, the Kathy Agenos, the Julia Namutuhaires, the Hadija Mwanjes, who should be here with us actually. So certainly they have, but again, there's always room for doing better, I want to say. Carol Bayanga, for example, how many people did she actually mentor? And even when she left on active journalism, she is still mentoring so many other people. And now she's expanded. It's not even in journalism alone. She's expanded her wings. She's mentoring people in other spaces as well, but still using this journalistic talent and knowledge and skills that she has. So I think there has been a lot of mentorship, but I also don't want to be selfish to only, I know it's a day about women, but I also don't want to be selfish and celebrate only the women. We've also had amazing support from our wonderful brothers in the industry. You have people like the Daniel Kalinakis, you have the Tabu Butageras, you have the Stephen Bides here, our amazing and awesome producer, who have also been there for us. You have people like the Otim Luchimas, you have the Alan Chekwets. They have done amazing jobs. You know, they've held our hands, they've nurtured us, they've made us grow to who we are, they've critiqued us where we've not done so well, in good faith to help us grow and do better. And I think it is also worth mentioning that and also equally giving them their props.
We shall take a quick commercial break.
Thank you.
Welcome back. It is still the Friday panel of journalists, this time around a panel of only the female journalists. My name is Rita Kemgisa. With me in studio, I do have Judith Atim, and this is a special dedication to Women's Day, which will be celebrated tomorrow, and we are paying a special focus on the women in the media. Of course, a lot of things are happening in the country, Judith, with the by-elections that are taking place in Kawempe, but earlier you talked about the progress that the women in the media have witnessed over the years, but also talked about the challenges. And before we broke off earlier, you were talking about the limitations that many of the women in the media face. And it brought me to the thinking that we were one time when in the space of women in news, and one of the threats that came up, especially with the young and female adults, and I don't want to stereotype this, but one person said, if you look around, especially in the media industry, majority of the female journalists either have no families or have no children. And one person, I remember them saying, usually they don't have the luxury of, going to making families or even to having children, because you mentioned earlier about the poor remuneration, and you understand, you and me, that majority of the journalists could be freelancers. And so when they think about it and they say, going away for 4 months, 3 months without a pay, I'm not going to take that path of giving birth. Looking at those threats of the women, and then now, of course, that speaks to the safety. If you look at the by-elections that are taking place right now in Kawempe, we are, gearing up towards the 2026 election. It is a mirror of the bigger picture that will happen, of course, in 2026. How can we ensure, the safety? How do we protect the journalists to, practice their work, safely in this media space?
Thank you. So you've asked two things: safety of female journalists within a political context, such as the one we are in, and also the social aspect of family. Okay, which are very important things. I'll start with the political context. We are in an election year. Kawempe is already the litmus test of what is to come. If you talk to any analyst, that is what they'll tell you. It's a dressing rehearsal for 2026. And when you see our male colleagues being deployed to cover these hotspots, okay, it's like volatile, sensitive, delicate situations, violent, I must say, and how they're being brutalized. And here we are saying we need to advocate to have female journalists also given these tough assignments. When you see police brutalizing your male colleagues out there, as a woman, what does that... Again, you just know this is not a space that I want to go into. This is not the environment that I want to go into. And it should not surprise you that a lot of very good journalists that we've had have actually had to cross into other less risky or safer platforms, PRA, things that don't, communications and so on. Of course, for many other reasons, including the issue of remuneration that we've talked about, but also the risk is just too much out there. You are a human being. In journalism school, we are told, no story is worth your life, So but again, the stories have to be told. Who is going to tell the story if everyone gets scared and cowers away or shies away from these stories? Because these are also important issues that affect society, that affect the future of the country. Having said that, what do we need to do to encourage journalists, female journalists especially? I think it only goes to, it's just basic common sense that the duty bearers, including especially the police force and security agencies, have to understand what their mandate is and work within their mandate. What threat does a journalist holding a camera, a notebook and a pen, and say a radio, a voice recorder, what threat do they pose to you as a security person that you have to rough them up, put them in a drone, torture them? It just defies basic common sense and decency. So we need to actually understand, we need to hold these institutions to account, and these institutions have to be responsive and understand that they are actually acting, they are becoming high-handed, and this kind of high-handedness is not healthy for a progressive media and a progressive society. Talking about now issues of family. When I was here in the newsroom, 2012 to 2017, I was a little younger then, but I think I just told myself this is not the time for me, the time and the place for me to have a family. And I stuck to that. But I've also had stories where we also understand what the law says about maternity leave. You know, you have your 3 months or 90 days or so of maternity leave. But I've also had stories by journalists, female journalists, who have in the past told me, look, I gave birth, and my editor, who also was a woman, just said you can't stay away for that period of time. You have to come back, or else your job is given to someone else. And these are violations, okay? We are the ones as the media, we're always championing and advocating for the needs and rights of others, but we're not doing the same for our own. And that is a big contradiction that needs to be corrected. A woman the law provides for maternity leave. If your female journalist is pregnant and has taken leave, accord her the time and space that she needs. Because, and I asked this lady, I said, you actually also forfeited your leave. She said, oh, I got scared. I said, no, you just didn't know your rights. Mm-hmm. Because that is a legal case that you can actually challenge. No one has the right to strip you of your constitutionally given right. You know, these are corrections that we need to...
Judith, that comes to the fact that if you're not aware of the rights, then you can't assert for what you actually truly deserve. We've right now been joined by Khadija Mwanje. I'll give you the opportunity to introduce yourself. But also, as we speak about Women's Day, the theme, accelerating action, I would love to hear your thoughts on whether you think the media in this country has done enough to accelerate the platform of female journalists over the years.
Thank you so much, Rita and Judith. My name is Khadija Mwanje. I am a journalist by training, by practice. Yeah.
Once a journalist, always a journalist. Even if you've left, you never left.
I know, you keep coming back.
You keep coming back, yes.
You keep coming back because it's kind of a passion. Mm-hmm. It's a passion that continues to drive you. And for me, I think really there are so many questions that we need to ask. One as women, but also to the people responsible, the policy makers, government, the different stakeholders. I came in when Judith was talking about family and media. The two don't mix.
They should.
the two don't mix. But I don't know what's happening right now, but I still know that it has always been a tough ground for female journalists. One, because of the nature of work. Media is... I joined the media in 2004. I think some of you are still in school. Mm-hmm. And it has always been a male-dominated field. Why? Because of the nature of work, the working hours. In the media, you don't have a day when you can comfortably sit home and say, I am home. Sometimes you're home and then you go to work. We've had times when you have to sleep, literally, in the newsroom.
Especially election season.
Exactly. Now the season is coming. Next week, there is no home day. So you literally have to keep working. And the kind of work makes it hard for women to thrive. And for me, I think it would actually start from the media owners. Specifically, what are you doing for the women under you? The women that work for you. Of course, it can't be a flat ground because we all know the gender roles. that come with being a woman. Sometimes we say, okay, gender roles, a man can do this, even a woman can do it, but practically, you will wake up in the morning, you have to work. If you have children, the story is different. You're a mom, you're a wife, you're an employee somewhere. So it becomes really hard. And I think until there are practical steps taken by the media owners, but also proper surveillance on the part of the government. Mm-hmm. Because so many media owners are actually exploiting their workers, especially when it comes to the women. Me, I remember I had my baby in 2008, and by then I was entitled to 60 working days. I gave birth before my leave days. I had planned to leave office, go give birth, so I don't forfeit any days. But I happened to have given birth before. So the 60 working days is about 1.5 months. Mm. You can imagine leaving your child at 1.5 months at home. Mm. So there is a lot that needs to happen. If, for instance, you're sending me out as a female journalist, what are the different things that I face? I've seen so many men saying, the women have to match up, they have to do this. But chances of a woman being harassed and the dangers that come with it are slightly higher. Today, if I saw a video when they were roughing up midday, and imagine if it was a woman.
That's exactly what I was talking about.
So the situation is completely different. Mm-hmm. And until we give it that lens, that it can't be a flat ground, from the newsrooms, right from the editors, getting to be understanding that some situations do not favor women. Sometimes even the managers, the media owners, and what come at the top. But you, as the first person, what are you doing? Mm. I heard Judith say a woman was telling the other one, and yet they are also women. Mm. But this is the environment they've been also through. Mm. For me, in my 12 years, 15 years in the media, active media, I didn't know what leave is. I didn't know it was sweet not to work on Saturday and Sunday.
Until you left.
You didn't know it was sweet to end work at 5 p.m.
You know, and you're home. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't know those things. And I'm getting to know them when I'm doing media half-half. Mm-hmm. But how many, so really we need to refocus right from the stakeholders at the starting point.
Judith, Hadija here talks about the law, the media owners being the ones, to push for the equal representation of the female journalists in the media spaces. And like we have mentioned earlier, yes, a lot of progress has been made. Female journalists have a representation in the media, but we can't run away from the fact that female journalists continue to face bias, either from their fellow colleagues at work or even from the field, the sources, from experience. What a particular source will give a male journalist, usually it's hard for you to fight for that space to be that trusted source of a particular information. Women or female journalists also continue, like Hadija has been saying, to be underrepresented, to be stereotyped, even within the society out there that we get to serve. How can we push, that authentic representation, authentic narrative of, female journalists in this country?
Okay. So Hadija talks about engaging multiple stakeholders to turn things around, which I agree. But you see, before you get there, it's not going to be handed for you or to you on a silver platter.
True.
Change starts, you must demand. And one thing I see is that a lot of times in the media, and these are now things you realize when you step out of the media, once you're an outsider looking in, is when you begin to realize that, oh my God, the media that we have, and especially women, are not as assertive as you'd want them to be. They will not demand for their rights. A lot of times they feel like someone is doing them a favor. And I've seen this happen so many times. So if you do not have that self-esteem, if you don't believe that you've actually earned the right to belong to a space like this, then chances are you're going to be timid. Even when someone steps on your toe, someone abuses your rights, you are not going to be able to come out and actually speak about this. I think we need to create a healthy culture of being assertive and demanding and saying, look, Khadija, I don't like this. You've done ABCD and this is not, progressive for us. It's not good for the sisterhood in the media. We need to actually create this demand for things to change. The men do not understand certain things because they don't know what it means to be a woman. They just can't relate to some of these challenges that a woman goes through, like Khadija was talking about. So as a woman, it is incumbent upon us, or as women rather, it's incumbent upon us to actually fight and assert ourselves and demand for things to change. And if you're also a woman who has authority in these spaces, do the women under you some justice and help, because you know what it means to walk in their shoes. Do not again be the aggressor, and that happens a lot. You find women who are supposed to be ideally uplifting or lifting the hands of the other, being the ones who are actually trampling over these other women. You're not helping anyone. You are in that space for a reason. I believe if you're there, I want to sound like a preacher now, there's a God-ordained reason or purpose for you to be there, and it is not to actually fight or trample the dignity of others underfoot. Lift them up. Fight for them.
We shall take a break, but when we do get back, we shall start on that, because as you're speaking, actually, was sounding like an activist, but she's not sounding to the people listening, to the people listening to us, the people listening to us. That will be activism. But when we do get back, let's have a discussion on how do female journalists in this country get to assert for their rights without being viewed as activists. You know what activists mean in this country. We take a break. Welcome back. It is still the Friday panel of journalists. It's a special edition of the female journalist, and this is in commemoration of Women's Day, which will be taking place tomorrow under the theme accelerating action. With me in studio, I do have Judith Atim, I have Hadija Mwanje, and myself. All of us are products of KFM, I should say. Before we went in for the break, Hadija, Judith was talking about how do we get to a set. I want to call it the sisterhood court, as she was saying. But again, I'm alive to the fact that it's not easy working in the media. Now let me get away from being on this other side of asking, but also, just try to contextualize it for people to understand that it's really not easy working in the media. People see us speaking, on the radio. People see stories, bylines, stories aired, but they do not know how do all this get into play. And earlier we talked about issues that, come in, with family, and Judith brought in that angle of how do we get to, rally for our rights as female journalists? How do we get to actually do our work without being seen or heard as perhaps being in the wrong spaces? And that brings me to the fact that maybe from your experience 12 years down the road working in journalism, how have you tried to navigate these complexities that come about, first of all, with being misunderstood? It could even be from your own family. I remember when I was working here 7 years, for the 7 years, I can count the number of times I went for Christmas. And it never used to go well with my parents. They could not understand. And even society would think, that girl, she just wants to make money. She doesn't want to come back to the village. But they don't know how hard or complex it is to work in the media. I've had friends of mine. Journalists, you're as good as by how your byline states or how the story you've written or the story you've read. They have been denied opportunities to go and cover these good stories that would have made them the best of journalists this country has had. I've had female friends, female journalists who have been, denied even for going for fellowships. Someone has gotten a fellowship to go and, study for just 3 months, but the husband can't allow them. How have you, if you could give a personal experience, managed to navigate the complexities that come about with being a female journalist who has, the career work, but you have also the family, and you also have your aspirations as a woman, despite being a female journalist?
First of all, I respond to the advice of being assertive. One, I think we are in a very competitive field, and we are at a stage when I've seen adverts in the newspapers. They advertise for spaces of journalists and they specify male. So employers are also running to that to keep out women. They keep saying, we need a reporter, specifically male.
Just discriminatory.
You know, that is not right, but I see it all the time. Sometimes some editors call you and they're like, do you know a good journalist? We want a male. Female, I had to work with. They'll tell you now the child is sick, now I have to do this. But these are realities. I mean, don't expect a mother to
leave her sick child behind.
Exactly, because they have to be in the newsroom. So really, these are issues that I continue to think about, and I'm like, okay, what can we do? But also the nature of the work that we do as journalists. It is not normal work. It's not an 8 to 5 job. It is, for me, I remember during my days in the media, sometimes I would wake up as early as 5. Why? Because you expect sometimes a demonstration. Now this is your field, you're a political reporter. Basically, is expected to walk from his home, and you want to capture the hot story of the day. So sometimes I would jump on a border from my home up to Kasangati. Then what do you want? You want to get a good story, because as you do a story, at the end of the day, they will not say that Hadija is a woman and maybe she had to look after the son or the daughter or what. No one will understand that bit. Everyone will say KFM did not cover the story well compared what we had elsewhere. And so this is a competition that you're not even looking at you, but you're looking at your media house. But where does this leave you? For me personally, I'll never forgive myself. I think I gave too much. That sometimes I look back and I wish I could take back the time.
You're giving too much to the media?
Yeah, I gave a lot. I gave a lot at some point in time, because I remember when I had my daughter, I took her to boarding when she was 2 years. Why? Because I was anchoring news, I was a reporter. You know, I had to be in office before 8. And then I had a bulletin to anchor at 9 p.m. So I would leave after 9 p.m. I had maids, I think like 11 in the 2 years. So they would come. At some point in time, my daughter went through mistreatment, and out of confusion and trying this and that, I said, no, I'm taking my daughter to at least, exactly. And my daughter has grown up in boarding school. But I lost a bond that I can never build. So there are things that you forego as a female journalist if you really want to match up. But all this was in the name of matching up, you know, and giving in the best. But sometimes, because your hands are tied, you need the best to give out. You need a name to build. You have a career to grow. There's so many demands from your office. So at the end of the day, the media work for women is not actually very, very favorable. Yeah. Of course, people see the Hadija behind the microphone, reading the news, but there is a lot of work behind what you see as a product. Putting together that product calls for a lot of sacrifice. And today, for me, I keep telling the young female journalists that I find that never sacrifice your life for anything. Not that I'm not saying they should not be good journalists, but you need to balance the boat, if I am to say. You really need to balance, because at the end of the day, family is key. But this should come from the owners, the managers. Can we have at least rotations? Can we have schedules that are respected? At least that small bit that you handle, if you manage a newsroom, can you make it a bit rotational so that you also understand that these are women, they are mothers, they are wives, and sometimes I pity those who are married. Now for me, I was a single mother. I can imagine if I had to go back home to a husband. I think it's terrible.
Judith, building on from what Hadija is saying, how do we indeed get to balance that boat? We have, careers to build. We have families to make. We have friends. I remember when I was working here, I pointed, Rita, and my friends were like, you know what, Rita, just get married to your work. It's okay. They push you out because you're never there. I'm like, going out for no, I can't, because I have to wake up at 4:30 a.m. to come and read the news. So you find yourself being excluded and all that. But at the end of the day, you have a name to build, like Hadija was saying. Judith, how can female journalists, media professionals, you are How can we get to challenge, the status quo, the things we've been talking about to ensure that female journalists get to thrive in this media industry, get to be the ones actually leading, the action that we are talking about, this gender equality that we are talking about. They need their lives at the end of the day to lead this process.
All right, I answer. But before I answer that, when Hadija was saying, my heart was really bleeding. I have a 2.5-year-old. I just cannot. I can't think of her going to boarding school. And I also tell myself, I am glad I made that decision to not get married at that time, to not have a family at that time, because I am such a soft-hearted person, it would kill me. But one thing would have gone. But I do understand. In fact, I can't even understand, and I have so much respect, and I'm in awe of every female journalist who actually has a family or decided to have a family while doing this. It is. I just can't. I have so much respect.
I remember giving birth and leaving this 3-month-old baby, waking up at 4, coming to read news, and then going back at 5.
I couldn't.
Oh my God.
I could. So
I like the honest discussion.
Yes. So you see, I for all the years I'd be here, just like you guys. Sometimes you're waking up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. for the car to pick you up, and then on a crazy day like an election day, so you're you're on the desk at 5 a.m. doing your edits and so on. And on a crazy day, 10 p.m. still finds you in office. So I would wake up and say, but if I have a child, how is it even going to work out? And I said, no, it's not going to work out. And when I left, like you were saying, you don't even know what sunshine, what your compound looks like. For 2 weeks, I would leave my blinds open and sleep and wait to watch the sun rise. And I'd actually sit on my bed just watching the sunrise and smiling at myself, and no one understood how important that felt like. I would get out and sit in the compound and just move barefoot just to feel the grass in my compound. Because those are things I wouldn't really know. I wouldn't know what home looked like during daytime. Now, to come back to what we can do, COVID, I think, was the test to the whole world for us to understand that work can still be done regardless of environments, regardless of where you are. And I am also happy that with the way technology has evolved, issues of flexi time this is a no-brainer. We shouldn't even be pushing for this. It should be automatic that, you can actually still deliver from wherever. Why do I have to wake up at 4 a.m. to come and file a story, which I can do from wherever? Why? Okay? Why? Of course, I understand if you're a photographer and there's this action that you need to be, like Stephen, you're recording for Morning at NTV. Certainly, there are certain situations where you have to be there. But it's not going to be every day that you must be physically present. So there has to be this conversation of having flexi time, not just for even female journalists, even the male journalists, their husbands and fathers. Exactly. They too need to be home supporting their families, being involved in the lives of their children, being involved in the lives of their spouses. It's important for us to have this. But the other thing that I want to also talk about, apart from pushing for spaces, I was just reflecting. So when a woman is pregnant, for example, especially our female colleagues in the TV spaces, okay, I think that's also conversations that never seem to come out. How are they treated? What do they go through? Because I know a lot of times when a female anchor or female journalist, a TV one at that, is pregnant, so somehow they are taken off the screens. Why? Pregnancy is a normal thing. Why should we be embarrassed or ashamed of seeing a pregnant woman in front of our TV screens? Okay? Now, this woman gives birth, comes back on the screen, and there's all this body shaming. Oh, you're so fat. You don't look good. You shouldn't be on the TV. Lose some weight. And it is just so much so we're in radio. You can hide behind the mic. You may not comb your hair and it's okay. Well, now we can't. There's a digital. KFM now has a whole digital thing. So if you don't comb your hair well, people will somehow still watch. But it is not as obvious as someone who's going on NTV or NBS or any of these other platforms. You understand? Yeah. But we need to normalize certain things as a society. A woman is going to get pregnant. It is something to celebrate. Let her read the news before TV. Let us make some of these things healthy. A woman is going to give birth. Her body has to change. It must change. Let us celebrate these changes.
Exactly.
You understand?
Ladies, we shall take another short commercial break. But when we do get back, we are running out of time, and we are here having honest and deep discussions that people out there, I'm sure, it's the first time you're getting to hear what female journalists get, to experience, go through.
Stephen is just smiling.
Their work. But when we do get back,
what we go through.
Exactly. Let's take a break. Welcome back. The conversations that go on behind the microphones. Well, it's still the KFM Hotseat panel of female journalists, a special edition as we look forward to celebrating Women's Day tomorrow. My name is Rita Kemgisa, and with me in studio I do have Judith Fatim and Hadija Mwanje. Hadija, as we get to conclude this edition, time is really fast.
It's like 10 minutes to 8.
Yeah, but earlier Judith talked about how COVID was a taste and how technology can help us in driving these narratives of change, especially for the media. And it gets me, and I'm asking this because I know you're doing innovative work down there with the young people. These are the future journalists that we shall one time in the future will be hosting us. But how do we get to what are some of those innovative ways that we women in the media or female journalists can use to accelerate the change for gender equality, to accelerate the change for female journalists having a better representation in the media space? What are some of those innovative ways you think?
Like Judith said, COVID really sent us into innovative mode. We need to get out of the traditional way of doing things. The fact that sometimes I need to be here to do a story. Now, for the TV people, I don't know what I can say, because you need the picture, you need the footage, you need the action. When you hear there is a strike in town, the first thing you do is turn on your TV, listen to your radio. Radio, you can run away. TV, I don't know. But for me, I really advocate for shifts, but shifts that are respected. In the media, it's one area. I don't know if things have changed. It's one area where you're told you will work 8 to 1, and you end up working 8 to midnight. So sometimes it's the work that determines your day, not what you have to do. So I really think we need, as we become more innovative of telling stories from wherever you are, that is one thing that can work, for instance, for print media, radio, TV. I don't know. I think the shift thing works better. But we also need to understand that the women we have in the media are not different from the women elsewhere. They are not special, not that they are not supposed to give birth, they are not supposed to be wives. There are some pieces of work that come with being a woman, and we should stop paying a blind eye to them as we look at these women. But we really need to go digital. Like Judith was talking about the digital thing. We need to go digital. For me, every day I talk to young people, and we can do, for instance, a show from where we are. We can do a show. I can decide to do my shows, have them recorded, and they will be up. So we still have a lot of work to think about how more innovative we can be, so that we keep the work running, but let us have a gender lens. It starts with that.
Judith, if there was that one thing, given an opportunity in the media industry to change, to accelerate, I should say, the plate of female journalists in this space, what is it that you could do different?
Rita,
you would want to see?
It cannot be one thing. It cannot be one thing. There are so many things, so I don't want to limit myself to that. But before I answer that, and I'm going to be very quick. Earlier when I was talking, you said I sounded like an activist. And you said, in Uganda, people...
I was speaking for the people listening in. For me, I understood where you're coming from.
Listen. So I went to Google. Activism, okay? The policy or action of using vigorous campaigning to bring about political or social change. And then it goes ahead, it says, activism consists of efforts to promote, impede, direct, or intervene in social, political, economic, or environmental reform with the desire to make changes in society toward a perceived common good. So if there's anyone out there who has a problem with activism, then they are a problem. Okay, they are the problem. Activism should not have a negative connotation. Activism is about correcting the errors, the ills in society, for us to have a progressive and functioning society for everyone.
So what are those errors that we need to change in the media space for female journalists to flourish?
So different stakeholders in covering, say, political or heated situations like campaigns or politics that we are seeing, we need to ensure there is safety and protection for journalists. The act of security forces, JAT, police, brutalizing journalists, that is stepping out of their mandate, and it is just complete nonsense. That is not their job. Their duty is to enforce law and order and to work within their mandate. Okay, their mandate is not about brutalizing. It is not written anywhere. In fact, that is a violation of the rights of journalists, and that should stop. Once we get that right, when they ensure that the environment is safe, not just for all citizens, then we are going to have our journalists executing their duties, both male and female, in a healthy space. Internally now, outside the police forces, the external forces, within us, we need to, Stephen, we don't want to have one conversation 365 days, you bring 3 women. We need to have more of
where are we having the producer? Where is the producer here?
Why is he
a man is a man. Yes.
But we need more days, like Judith said. Stop inviting us for Women's Day.
When there is a woman, there is a man. The man is there to support the woman.
You must accelerate action.
You come support the women. And before I even tell you why I'm here, the female journalists, I need you to also take the lead. Why do you feel comfortable covering, or even before you're assigned, you feel you want to cover relationships, arts and leisure, you don't want to cover sports, you don't want to... tell me, how many sports...
We have Gistin, we have...
Okay, let me make my point.
Those are the stereotypes. We need to change the perceptions of some of the men.
Listen to me. You have to take the lead. Wake up. Don't feel, don't lay back. Feel you have,
but this is why you assign us. This is why you assign us. You know, when you're hiring a political reporter, you will need a male.
You know, let me tell you this.
When you're hiring relationship and
even sitting on a talk show like this, to have a female host a talk show, it's just something that has emerged just recently.
And sometimes they need to balance.
A lot of push.
This is a female
push from the women's movement.
Go back behind the microphone. It's a female panel. We are just away from the...
You have 4 minutes to go.
Just give me 1 minute.
I'm giving you 30 seconds.
Thank you. Fight, or not fight. Fight is be...
fight. Assad.
Assad, go for your space. For the space that society feels is space for men.
We have to...
That's why we are here. That's why we are here.
If it means, how many female show hosts do we have in this country? Have you made yourselves available?
The gentlemen are not retired. They are not stepping aside.
Many of you feel comfortable writing about relationships.
That's a stereotype. I said
many. I didn't say all of you.
Just say some. Not even many. Some.
Let's go to the papers.
30 seconds.
30 seconds are done. Hadija, let me get to your parting shots as we celebrate the female journalist that you are. Video out of the studio.
Yeah, first of all, I want to salute every female out in the media. It's not easy, but it's doable. We've said from the start to here, let's be more assertive. Let's claim our spaces. For me, there are times we would be and I'm like, okay, where is the woman? Sometimes let's look out for one another. Let's hold one another's hand, because if we continue again to move in isolation, we will not succeed. Let's look out for one another, but also fight for our space. That is very key. It starts from being empowered to know that I am entitled to this. Let us know that we're entitled to these spaces. What a man can do, I can do. One time I went for an interview, as I close, I went for an interview and the editor was asking me, it was one of the top TV stations, and they were asking me, do you think, what makes a female journalist
better or different?
Exposed than a man? I told them there is nothing. And I think that's where I failed the interview, because I think what a man can do, I can do. I may not do exactly, this is the problem that we have. People think I'm supposed to be a man. I am not supposed to be a man. I am
You
supposed
can't
to be a
even be. You
Exactly.
can't.
I am a woman. In my uniqueness, I can do good work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Judith, your
Excellent
parting
work.
shot.
Thank you, Rita. So, just like Khadija, ladies in the media, we celebrate you, we respect you, we admire you, you inspire us. Keep inspiring us and inspiring the next generation of female journalists. Do the very best that you have to do. And, of course, keep advocating for your spaces, push the boundaries, shatter those glass ceilings if you have to. The other women have done it before. You can go even higher. The sky should not even limit you. And happy Women's Day.
And to the young female journalists that are still in school, let me serve as a guiding example that you can actually make it from school. You can, just do you. And trust me, you never know how far, the sky can take you. Thank you so much, Judith and Hadija,
Thank you,
for
Rita.
this honest conversation that we get to have on such a day. Once a year, yes. Until next time, guys, have a good night and happy Women's Day to all the women out there.